Welcome back to YellowCard Vanguard. Again, we're resuming the Link Joker case watch where we are now. So here's part 2, where we're talking about Messiah. For those of you who keep up to date with Vanguard, then you'll know that Different Fight released a deck profile video for Messiahs very quickly after the clan booster came out earlier this year. I helped him with that, and you can actually recognize my voice in the deck profile talking about the pieces we run and whatnot. The only difference now is that my list now has all SPs, so we're all good. Yeah, that's pretty much it actually. Like, the list hasn't changed much. There are still 2 options to run. I think they're both equally good now. If anything, the Lady Bomber Globule Doba engine actually has more merit now, given how early game and aggro focused gift markers have made it. So by having like this 9k beat stick that draws you 2 extra cards, you can sort of keep up because everything else is restricted. The other big change is that in my main list that I have now, which is using the Lady Bomber style, I've switched to 6 crit 6 draw rather than 8 crit 4 draw, just because you need to find these pieces, because without these pieces you have no early game plus, you have no way of keeping up the tempo until you stride, and then you'll just lose. I'm not going to talk as much about the list and how to play it, and there won't be a tabletop simulator section where I show how this works or how that works, but it'll be more about what we're looking for, because I think Messiah has the most potential out of all 3 of the decks right now. It just needs a little bit more, but the issue is how it's designed. So the reason the design is an issue is because at first a lot of the Messiah pieces were GB restricted. This is natural, it's a GB deck, it makes sense. And then that's when we started getting Globule Doba and Lady Bomber who weren't GB restricted, who could let you do stuff while you were on the grade 2 turns. We started getting Ideal Ego, who was a grade 3 that did something without stride, but it still just wasn't quite enough, which is a real shame, especially because you have no way of fixing your ride. It's the same issue with Chaos in a way, where of the 2 grade 3s you're in the deck, one is the one you want to ride all the time, and the other one has a very specific job. So in the case of Chaos, you only ever want to be discarding clothes for stride cost or deluge skill cost. And with Ideal Ego, you only want to use them as a rearguard attacker to fuel your extra multi-locks. So riding Ideal really sucks, but it's still not the end. It's not like riding clothes. Like if you ride clothes in Chaos, you might as well just like pack up and go home. Like riding Ideal, you can still play the game. It's just much harder for you to get your plus. It's much harder for you to gain your board tempo and things like that. So kind of what I want to see from Messiah going forward is easy non-GB ways of locking your opponent's board. I know that locking your opponent's board is not fun, but Messiah really needs it to keep up tempo and just to not lose the early game. Like if your opponent rushes you on grade 1 or grade 2, like some Force decks can and will do, then you need to be able to like lock their stuff down and just slow the game down a bit just so you can get to your stride pressure. Because there's no way that you can make stuff that unlocks without striding. If you make too many easy unlocks that aren't GB restricted, then the deck will just spiral out of control, because then you'll have multi-attack combos on grade 2 and that's not okay. You'll have just so many options like at your grade 3 ride, and I feel that the deck should be limited by the fact that your stride is what makes everything happen. Like, I think that's how it's balanced at the moment. Some other things I want to see is like just some interesting grade 2s more, like, because we have Lady Bomber who's not the usual design, but then again her design is all very straightforward. There's nothing like say Dubnia, which is your opponent has a choice, both of which are good for you. And there's nothing like, say, Given, which is just outright busted. A lot of the cards in Messiah are just very good, and the deck as a whole is very synergistic, but there's no individual standout card. Like, there's no Deluge, there's no Given, there's nothing that you go, okay, if this card gets banned, the deck just stops functioning. Like, if you remove any single piece from Messiah, be it Sacrifice, the Lady Fencer, just like the grade 1, any of your grade 1s, if you can cut them, then you'd be like, okay, like you don't lose that much. But it's not the same where every single card, like you notice that it's missing. Like, you know, if I didn't have Lady Fence, I'd be like, oh man, I really wish I had Lady Fence right now. Or if you didn't have Globule Doba, you'd be like, oh man, I really wish I had like the extra counter charge and draw right now. So it's really tough to like tune the list any more than it already is, especially, you know, more so to make it early game focused without breaking everything. I think the good thing about Messiah is that because you're not name restricted, we are free to run the deleter triggers, which will be 10k, and that's going to be really nice. Like, I think you don't worry enough about the soul options that you would run 4 of the big draws. I don't know if you run any big crits, because Paradigm Shift shuffles up onto the deck so you don't deck out, and Blink Messiah does Messiah things. The heals you can definitely get rid of, because like having extra resources is nice, but then you don't really care that much, especially compared to the big shield values. So I think like definitely the trade line will change. I think if you're really worried about sort of early game and just like having more of that tempo and momentum, then the G zone can adjust a bit as well. You maybe want to add in back Amnesty Messiah, just you have a first stride with the crit pressure. Maybe add in Excelts back in, just that all of your strides have crit pressure. I don't think Flagellate's worth the play still. At that point, you're basically just saving integrals for your on-stride hand reset, which is a bit sad. Like, you can still do multi-attacks and the unlocks in mid-battle, stuff like that, but with Globule Doba and Lady Fencer, and if you're riding Ideal because you have to now, then a lot of your locks won't be locked during the battle phase. Like, they'll be locked in the main phase, and then you'll unlock to both get pluses while also doing your 3 attacks. So maybe it would be nice to see more Metallic Messiah-esque cards, things that pay off for the unlocks. So nothing that enables multi-attacks, but just say like 5k for every unlock. It just gets big. Like, that would be fine. It would be super awesome if one of the promos is that long-awaited Rewind Dragon promo print. So for those of you who don't keep up to date on the Japanese meta, we got a promo in Japan like a week or two after the Messiah stuff released in Japan, called Rewind Dragon. It's a grade 3 10k. I don't remember if it's GB or not, but it's got an act skill where you retire it to retire one of your opponent's locked cards to draw 2 cards. And that gave you your field plus, it gave you hand plus, and it just gave you control. The only downside is that the only way to lock your opponent's board most of the time outside of Basaltis is the Neo Ideal Stride skill, which is not really good either because, like I said, it would be really great if we got some more early game stuff that locked, like just a generic grade 1 7k on hit lock. That would be quite cool. Like, it would give us a bit of early game pressure. You know, it's okay to be a 7k base versus an 8k body, but it would just be like something that made the early game a bit less bad. And honestly, I would even be okay like sticking with all 7k grade 1s and all 9k grade 2s compared to other decks with like 10k grade 2s and 8k grade 1s, because sure, you're losing like the damage pressure race, but the idea is that as the game goes on, you should be plussing more, you should be able to multi-attack a bit harder, you should be able to like force some more columns, which is also really sad because I think Messiah would love to have force markers the most out of anybody. Like, imagine if you could stick a force marker on a Lady Fencer. She's going for basis 11, so 21 with a force marker, plus the 5 from Ronan skill is 26, and then any other boost, any other unlocks just happens multiple times. I know this might be a bit good, but it would be really, really nice if we just like consistently put force markers on our multi-attacking rear guards. But unfortunately, like now that all the grade 3s are going to be deleted, I don't think we can fit them in just because you're so critical on having the Messiah race on your Vanguard. A lot of your strides need to have a Messiah race heart. Ideal Alter Ego Neo is still just a really, really good card. Like, it consistently draws you, it gives you a bit of board presence. It just is a little bit behind, say, No Life King or Imperial Daughter. So I don't know what else you can do with it, but I think Messiah's in a very stable position. Definitely has a lot of potential though, so I would like to see 1 or 2 cards targeted for Messiah, but not like specifically. So, you know, nothing that mentions you having Messiah race because that wouldn't fit thematically, but something that says like when this card is unlocked, do something great. Like kind of like Globule Doe, but maybe on grade 2. Like grade 2 10k when it's unlocked to draw a card once per turn, or like named once per turn, like Nemain even. I'd be okay with that. Just so you have a 10k body and a little bit more plus to reward you for your early game. Yeah, I think it's actually quite simple when you think about it. Like, Messiah started off as this really intense combo deck, and then as it evolved, it became more and more tempo and focused less on the multi-attacks and focused more on the gradual grind and gradual plus. The only problem is that gradual grind, gradual plus style just doesn't really work in this day and age where you have early game combos like No Life King, you've got insane finishing turns like Ichikishima Deer, you've got Geese running around. It's kind of hard to like fight one thing while fighting the other, because if you try and fight Geese, you then lose to No Life King. If you try and fight No Life King, you then lose to stuff like Royal Paladin. It's very difficult to fight everything at once, which is kind of why I've shifted from Messiah to Chaos right now, because at least Chaos has the one game plan that you always want to go off. For Messiah, you need to rely on this piece and that piece, and you need to rely on not dying and so on and so forth. And it's very hard to get there, especially when you need it to happen with striding. And surviving a Till Stride is also hard given the current environment. So yeah, like, I'm hopeful. I'm not too hopeful, but we'll definitely see what comes out. So this was definitely a shorter one than the Chaos one because there's less to talk about. There's a lot less to update on. I don't think like people have really figured out Chaos since the Clan Booster came out. I know that Different and I didn't really make any videos on it because I still spent a lot of time myself testing. Like, the fact that I've been playing Chaos all the way from then up until now just to figure out like what's good, what's not good, relative to the meta, has said a lot. Whereas with Messiah, we kind of figured out on day one, or you know, like within the first week, and it's kind of not really changed since then. But hopefully later this week, I'll be doing the Deleter one, and there'll be a lot to talk about there, especially why you can't interact with the old Given, because that's not fair. Naming Grey specifically enables a few of the old Grey 3s, like Grey End. Basically what I'd hope to see and how to make it like fair and premium standard. But yeah, this will be it for Messiah. It's really short, but hopefully you guys will take away something from this. Like, think, oh yeah, this was a good point. Or if you guys have anything you want to say, like, I'm open to ears. I'll definitely listen. Like, I'm sure that I'm not the best Link Joker player in the world. You know, I play a lot of it, but I think there's still something that other people have thought about that I haven't. So yeah, feel free to like engage in discussion. I'm always happy to talk about stuff like this. You can catch us on Twitter, on Discord, on Facebook, on all these things. Yeah, stay around and there'll be a lot more interesting stuff to talk about in the Deleter video. So until then, bye bye.